Hello there everyone, welcome to this week's Gran Turismo 7 Daily Race C Race and Strategy Guide. We're off to the Daytona Road course in America and we are in the Group 3 machinery. Now this is a car and track combination we've done numerous times for Daily Race C, but in fairness to Polyphony Digital, it is around about 8 months since we last did it in Daily Race C and things have changed with the game in the meantime, so it should feel maybe a little bit different than the last time we were here. We've got 10 laps to get round, we've got tyre wear at times 6, fuel at times 2, we've just got the racing medium tyres available. There's a mandatory pit stop in this one, BOP is on, damage to lights, a rolling start, and thankfully slipstream is real. For your settings allowed, we just have the brake balance, which I think is probably the best way for Polyphony Digital to go with these races rather than the setups, in my personal opinion. So as ever, we jumped into the very first Daily Race C of the week at 8 o'clock in the morning here in the UK, and you probably guessed from the thumbnail, we are in the Dodge Viper for this one. I did a few test laps yesterday just to make sure it actually had some reasonable top speed, which is of course very important for Daytona. Now it's not as fast as that Toyota Supra just in front of us that Tisney's in, or even the Corvette that Mario Sonic's in, but it's only given up a couple of mph over the start finish line, so should be competitive enough in this very first race of the week. So as ever, in the early stages of these races, you're just looking to kind of make sure you get the car around in one piece. The sort of natural way of this track, the hairpins at the beginning of it, obviously we're starting fairly close together, means that the cars do concertina up quite a lot, so just be careful of your braking points. They're not going to be the same as when you are in clean air, and yeah, just make sure that you are not compromising somebody else's race too badly. You want to make sure you're in that slipstream as we move on to the banking here on the first lap. If you lose the slipstream at Daytona, it can be very much the end of your race, because it's worth at least half a second per lap, if not more. Thankfully, as I said earlier, we've got real slipstream on for this one, not custom slipstream, so it should be a little bit less chaotic into the bus stop that we're approaching now, or indeed the first corner. Unfortunately though, Metal 8 Racer is going to get that one a little bit wrong. He takes Tisney out, we get nowhere to go into the back of the Corvette, spin them off, and we pick up a 4-second penalty. Now remember what I said in the penalty video that we put out just recently, sometimes you're going to pick up a bad penalty, and that's a case of we really didn't have anywhere to go. I lifted off early going into the bus stop chicane, but it wasn't quite enough in this instance. It's a 4-second penalty for our troubles. So given we've just served that penalty, given we've slowed down on the start finish straight, and given it the pit lane's there, we're going to dive into the pits and make that mandatory pit stop on the opening lap. And of course, given that we're coming in on lap 1, there is no point changing the tyres, because we just don't really get the benefit of the fresh tyres if we were to do that. But there is a double reason for that, because the tyre change in this one, or to be more precise, the length of the tyre change in this one, is going to have a big influence on strategy. So we're not going to change the tyres here. Stationary time 1.7 seconds. Here is an example of how long you're going to be stationary if you do change those tyres, when we did a little bit of a test yesterday. So 6.8 seconds, that is a difference of 5.1 seconds if you change the tyres. Now that is quite a lot indeed, especially over a race that only lasts 17.5 minutes. So if you do change the tyres, you're going to be in the pits for 21.6 seconds. If you don't change the tyres, you're going to be in the pits for 16.5. Fuel is going to be no issue whatsoever. But we'll talk about the strategy in more depth a little bit later in the video. Let's finish off how this race went for me after that rather disappointing start. So we came out the pits, we were a wee bit behind the BMW here of the Austrian. We caught them fairly quickly, and I thought because they went so far over to the left hand side of the track, they were letting me through. Seems that wasn't quite the case. Now I would say they kind of more turned into my car there, as a typical sim racer would, but we did make contact with them and let them take that position back, and then just slipstream by them on the first part of the banking down into the bus stop. And I was kind of hoping that would be job done, because the way I kind of think is that, you know, I've caught this driver for 3 seconds, we clearly seem to have more pace than them. I think it's more just that the BMW doesn't have the straight line pace, it's not particularly competitive around here, but I was kind of thinking that was job done If I was the BMW driver, I would just be kind of in the slip there. If we get the chance to bump draft the Viper, then that's what I would do. But people are free to do whatever they want when it comes to racing, and the Austrian is going to try and go round the outside of us, so we're going to go a little bit defensive. I didn't really think it was going to be too much of an issue. We take a quick look behind us, we see they're on our right hand side, so I wasn't expecting them to then appear on the left, and I was a little bit annoyed with that one, I must admit, because for all the reasons that I just mentioned, I thought it was just unnecessary. We're already not having a very good race. We could do without losing any more time. There's Shelty just emerged from the pits in the Ford GT as well. Now Shelty has changed the tyres, so we'll get a decent comparison of how somebody that's changed the tyres and somebody that's not changed the tyres compare to each other as this race unfolds, because our Austrian friend here is going to get a little bit leery on the throttle. Very easy to do in the BMW and spin off at the third hairpin. So we're up into P11 in this one. A few people still to make their pit stops, and to be honest with you, that was pretty much it for the rest of the action in this one. We did move up to P10 courtesy of another spinner, and that is where we were to finish this one. We kind of held on to Shelty initially, but then they started to pull away as those fresh tyres started to become an advantage over the last couple of laps. Now you can see our tyres are pretty much second hand at this point, but more than enough grip to get the car around the track without too much of a problem. So it's an interesting one, because that tyre change is quite long, but the pace you lose at the end is definitely noticeable as they get into that sort of 9th and 10th lap. 17 minutes 54, definitely scope for an additional lap to be in this one, but let's move on to those all important strategy options, and then I'll just give you my thoughts and feelings on this race right at the end. So in terms of strategy, you have two options. You have the no tyre change strategy that we did in this race. That allows you to pit on any lap, gives you that flexibility. You'll save 5 seconds over anybody that does change the tyres. It gives you track position, but you will have bad tyres at the end. So there certainly seems to be more pros than cons to that strategy, particularly given it's 5 seconds that you save, which is more than you normally would when you don't change the tyres. You do obviously have that option to change the tyres if you want to, if you're particularly bad on the tyres, but everything that's a pro for the no tyre change strategy becomes a negative for the tyre change strategy, and everything that's a negative for the no tyre change strategy becomes a pro. So you're going to be pitting on laps 4 to 6. You're going to lose 5 seconds, possibly track position, possibly the slipstream as well. However, you will have better pace at the end. My instincts are that you're not going to gain 5 seconds back with the better tyres, so for this one I would recommend the no tyre change strategy. That's not to say that the tyre change strategy can't work, but I just think the 5 seconds that you lose is too much, and the tyres still have enough pace at the end of the race, even if you don't change them. So that is the strategy I'm recommending for this one. So final thoughts on this race. Well, Daytona Group 3 is always pretty good fun. It always produces a pretty decent race, but it's hard not to feel that we've not been here before many times already. I think this is maybe the 4th or the 5th time we've done this exact same kart and track combination, which necessarily in itself isn't a problem, but Gran Turismo's kind of unique selling point, in my opinion, in the sim racing market is its ability to use those all-important settings to change up the dynamic of the race, and you can make the same kart and track combination feel very different. It's just something I feel they need to be doing a little bit more when it comes to daily race C, and they're not really doing, and it's hard not to feel that we're getting sold a little bit short. But I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye now.